Hello, this is Johnson again with your Visual Functional Mathematics at Level 3. Today we're going to deal with 2D and 3D shapes, movements and direction. This is the last of the lessons on Section 2 of the program. After this we have two more lessons in Section 3, which deals with data handling, and then you'll be ready for your exams in a few weeks' time. I will give you information about that later on. 2D shapes are flat and 3D shapes are solid. It's got volume. What is movement? Movement is about direction you're moving towards from point A to point B and how you decide on your movements. It also involves the clocks, how the clock moves, whether you're moving clockwise or anti-clockwise. We'll deal with that later on. And then of course, if we're talking about movement, we have to think about direction, and direction is about the 4 points of the compasses, the 4-point compass direction. So let's look at some 2D shapes. 2D shapes are flat, they're two-dimensional, 2D, two-dimensional. Examples of 2D shapes, as you can see here, you have rectangles, square, circle, triangles, and other polygons, which we'll look at later on in details. A square is a 2D shape with 4 straight sides, 4 equal straight sides. They have 4 corners. All the angles at the corners are at right angles. A right angle is 90 degrees. You remember I told you to get your mathematical set. Well, you'll be able to use your protractor to measure angles. All the angles at the corners are right angles. A right angle is a square corner. If you look at the diagram below, you'll see that all the angles at the corner are right angles. Also, and very important, because it's a topic we've just dealt with, it's got 4 lines of symmetry. You remember symmetry? Right, so you've got vertical line, you've got horizontal line, and you've got diagonal line from top left to bottom right, and then another diagonal line of symmetry from top right to bottom left. So you see all the properties of a square, how dynamic it is. Rectangles are like squares. All the sides are not equal. Rectangles have 4 straight sides. Opposite sides are equal. All the angles at the corners are at right angles. Did you know that a square is a rectangle? It has all the property just like the rectangle. The only difference is that all the sides of the rectangle are not equal. The opposite sides are equal, but not all 4 sides. Rectangles are 2D shapes. Here is an image of a rectangle. You can see the opposite sides are equal. You can see that it has 4 right angles, and a significant difference between the rectangle and a square is that the rectangle has only 2 lines of symmetry. Study it for a minute before you turn to the next slide. Let's look at triangles. They are also 2D shapes because they're flat. Triangles have 3 straight sides. The sides can be different lengths, and triangles also have 3 corners. The angles at the corner can be different, although in certain triangles they can all be equal, or the base angles can be equal as opposed to the top angle. Here is an image of a triangle. This triangle, as you can see, has two equal angles at the base, but the top angle is different. It has one line of symmetry. Two sides are equal, that is the two top sides that meet at the top, but the bottom line is of a different length. You've got different types of triangles. This triangle has a right angle, so it's called a right-angled triangle. All the sides are not equal, all of them are different, and it doesn't have any line of symmetry. Circles are very, very interesting indeed, and as you progress in your maths, when you begin to look at calculate areas, you'll see why circles are very interesting. Okay, but for now let's just look at a circle and be able to describe it. Circles have one curved side. They don't have any corners. It has one curved side that goes all the way around. That's what I mean. It's continuous and it has no corner. If you look at this image of the circle, can you tell where the line starts and where it ends? No. So it's a continuum. Here are some practice questions. You've got 6 shapes. All you have to do is to name them. And then on the second practice question, you have some sort of problems you have to solve. Daria wants to buy a square plate. Which of these plates should she buy? A, B, or C? Question 3. Pascal bought a new dining table. What shape is it? Okay, so that was 2D shapes. Now let's look at 3D shapes. 3D shapes are solids. You have cubes, you have cuboids, you have cylinders. Now I've got some solid objects with me, like this one. Although it's a little bit flat, my calculator, this is a cuboid. And pretend that my apple juice, no, I'm not going to share it, this is for me. Pretend that my apple juice carton was flat at the top. So this would be another perfect cuboid. It's when they say that it's solid, it means that it's got volume. Okay? Right, unlike a flat 2D shapes, which we look at from a bird's eye. And then the cylinder has got circles at both ends, but the side is continuous because of that. Okay? Right. 3D shapes can have flat sides or faces and curved sides. They have edges, the joint between two sides. The edge okay, this is an edge, that's an edge, this is an edge, this is an edge, and that also is an edge. Okay? You need to know these shapes because as you progress you will have to solve problems relating to them. Let's look at some 3D shapes. You have cubes. Look at the properties. Properties, that means the things that it has that enables you to identify it. So in this case, a cube has 6 identical faces. All the faces are squares. A cube has 8 corners. Can you identify the corners? If you're not sure, you'll see the 4 corners at the top and the 4 corners at the bottom, where the length, breadth and height meet. all the angles at the corners are at right angles. A cuboid is very, very similar. What's the difference between a cube and a cuboid? A cuboid has 6 faces like a cube. And all the faces are rectangles or squares. That could be one significant difference. A cuboid has 8 corners, again, like a cube. And all the angles at the corners are at right angles. So if you remember, you see why I said that a square is a form of rectangle? Well, it's the same with the cuboid and the cube. Now, a cylinder is different. The flat sides of a cylinder are circles, and it's got 2 flat sides. It has no corner because it's round. It's a continuum, as I told you, the top and the bottom bits. And it has no curved sides. Okay, there are other forms of 3D shapes which we will learn about almost at the end of the lesson. Practice questions. All you have to do is name A, B, and C. For question 2, look at the sofa cushion on the right. What shape is it? Funny shape for a sofa cushion, isn't it? And then you've got 2 practice questions. I am not going to read this to you. However, for question 4, you see that it's made up of 2 different 3D objects. So you need to take that into account, and you will begin to realize that when you're looking at an object, you need to look at it critically. When you progress to level 1, you will begin to calculate areas and volumes. Then you need to figure out how you can calculate the area of a shape like this one on question 4. Practice questions. Each question part below describes a feature of a 3D shape. Choose which shape it is. 2 of its sides are circles. B. The angles at each corner are at right angle. I'm not going to tell you, you should know that by now. But if you don't, then go back to the previous slides and read through them again. You can do it. Let's look at movement and direction. You will learn about movement, the 4 points of compass and the 8 points of compass. Let's describe movement. Movement can be described by talking about direction. You can move clockwise, and that's the definition. You can see the arrow, or you can move anti-clockwise. That is moving towards the right or moving towards the left. You can also talk about the amount of movement. If you look at the diagrams below, 1, 2, and 3, they describe 3 different movements. The first one is a whole turn. Mathematically, we say it's a 360 degrees turn. You start from one point, move round in a circle, and come back to the same point. You have half turn, turning half a circle. That half a circle on the straight line is 180 degrees. If you have your protractor, we'll learn how to measure angles later on. And then you have a quarter turn, that is number 3. It turns a quarter of a circle. If you remember when we were looking at our time on the clock, if the large hand starts at 12 and it moves on to 3, that is a quarter past. In other words, 15 minutes. So you begin to see how we relate different areas of maths together to form one knowledge, which is our knowledge of maths. Let's look at an example. The dial on an oven is set to 0 degrees Celsius. Now look at the diagram. The dial is turned half a turn to the right. What temperature is the oven set to now? Look at the direction clockwise, and you'll see that the oven is set to 120 degrees Celsius. Practice questions. Read this and see whether you can figure it out based on this last topic we've just dealt with. The dial on an electric shower is set to off. What is the dial set to if it turns A, a half turn clockwise, a quarter turn anti-clockwise? 2. The dial on the electric shower is set to cold. Describe how to turn the dial to set it to hot. One thing about maths you begin to realize is it is not just about calculating A plus B or 4 plus 8 or 4 times 8. You have to calculate, but most importantly you have to talk about it to make sense. And this is what you're starting to apply in your knowledge of maths. Do you remember I told you math is about your everyday life, it's about your language? So if you don't know the language to use, you will not be able to talk about it. Okay. Let's look at 4-point compass. The 4 compass points are north, south, east, and west. The image on the right shows them to you. However, there is a short rhyme we use to remember these compass points, and that is never eat soggy wheat. Never for north, eat for east, soggy for south, wheat for west. You can use compass points to give direction. So the 4 compass points are east, west, north and south, or north, east, south and west if you go clockwise. Look at the map carefully. You'll see that it's made up of a number of motorways, and then on the side there you'll see there's the sign of a compass which usually shows north, and then they expect you to know the different compass direction, which is north, east going clockwise, south and west. On the basis of that, you have a problem. Shristi is going to Bolton. She's traveling north on the M56. When she joins the M60, should she go east or west? First of all, she's traveling north on the M56. When she joins the M60, she needs to go to the left towards the M61, which takes you to Bolton. 2. To work out whether left is east or west, fill in the missing compass points, as you see there on the right. So north, east, south and west. Once you've done that, you'll be able to know what direction to go. That is what we mean by movement according to the compass points. The 8th compass point, or the 8-point compass. Although compass points are primarily 4 points, but then to make it easy for direction purpose or for movement purpose, it is divided into 8 points. So the points between north and east is known as northeast. So you're not going directly north or directly east, you're going in a direction in between. Likewise, the direction between east and south is southeast, the direction between south and west is southwest, and the direction between west and north is northwest. You can use all 8 compass points to give more accurate directions. Let's look a little bit more at the 8-point compass. Lloyd is watching a weather report. In what direction is the wind arrow near Cardiff pointing? You study it, look at your compass indicator there, look at the arrows. The arrow is pointing up and to the right. North is up, right is east. So up and to the right is northeast. You have two practice questions here. They're pretty straightforward. If you look at the first question, it deals with a flat. Okay? And it's a plan of a flat showing the kitchen, the bathroom, the lounge, and the bedroom. And then you see the compass indicator there, and then on the kitchen and the bedroom you have the windows pointing in particular directions. So you need to figure out what directions they're pointing. Question 2 is a similar question, only this is about movement. Is Paris east or west of Alencon? Marie lives southeast of Paris. She is driving to Alencon to visit a friend. And the questions say, should she go clockwise or anti-clockwise along the Paris Ring Road? Which direction should she head in for Le Mans? There we go. What have we learned? We know the characteristics of and difference between 2D and 3D shapes. Remember, characteristics means the properties it has that makes you able to identify them, like their angles, their shapes, their sides, and so on. We know that an angle is formed when two lines meet, and we also know the different types of angles. Right angle, for example, acute angle, obtuse angle, that is small angle and bigger angles. You'd be required to be able to measure angles as you progress to level 1. We know the descriptions and properties of rectangles, square, triangles, and circles. We will know more again as we progress. We know the properties of 3D objects and can identify different 3D objects in real life. I showed you one. We know what movement and directions are and can identify the 8 compass points. We can now use a compass to find directions of places and in what direction we are moving or have to go. And before we go, I'll just show you briefly a few 2D and 3D shapes and their names, so watch closely. that is our lesson for today on the end of Section 2 of the Visual Functional Maths at entry level. Next week, I'll have a set of questions and answers ready for you, which I will expect you to attempt as many as possible. Pretend you're taking a short exam and time yourselves. Read the questions carefully and answer them. The answers are on the same slides as the questions, but please, in your own best interest and in the interest of your learning, attempt the questions first and then you check your answers. Okay? At the end of the unit, I'll give you a practice exam paper to look at and attempt under exam condition. That is, you'll give yourself 1.5 hours, and then the next week we will look at the answers together. So until next week, when you have your practice questions and answers, take care. I'll see you then, and thank you.